a small. So what I was saying is, finally block in Java is used to perform resource cleanup operations. Right. For instance, let us take a database. Right. Database can be represented, and with the database, usually we can perform three typical operations. One is opening connection, second one is reading data, and next thing is closing connection. Right. This closing the DB connection is really important. This is what we call it as what resource cleanup operation. This is very important. So if you want to understand this in the real time analogy, I can say that like let us take the refrigerator example. Right, you open the refrigerator, you store the food inside the refrigerator, or you consume the food, and at last it is a compulsion to close the refrigerator. So that is mandatory. Closing the refrigerator is mandatory thing, because without closing the refrigerator, what happens in the real time? It is not going to produce like enough coolants. Right, the food. It is going to consume more memory if you keep the refrigerator open. And at the same time, it is not going to maintain the temperature that is required to store the food. Right? Likewise, if you go and visit a restaurant, a AC restaurant, the AC restaurant usually you will have a door, right? You entry, when you give the entry, you will not ensure that the door is properly closed. So you may forget, right? In those cases, what they really do, the restaurant people, they make sure that the door is automatic. You just pull the door will be closed automatically as soon as you give the entry. Right? Likewise, in the Java, it's our responsibility to make sure that the resources are properly closed. It is recommended as well as it is a compulsion. Right? This is a typical example: try block and a catch block and a finally block. So far, we have discussed about try block and catch block, and today I am introducing about the finally block. Right? What I am saying is, what I have just said to them is, the finally block will always get executed, no matter what, whether the exception is occurring or not. It doesn't matter whether it is handled or not. It is not a matter. It's not a big deal. This finally, the statements inside this finally block will always get executed. Of course, it gets executed only once. It is a takeaway. It always gets executed, whether the exception is occurring, whether the exception is not occurring. Right? And the finally block is not a standalone block. Right? What do I mean by standalone block? You cannot write the finally block without having try and catch blocks. So the finally block should be written all along with the try and catch blocks. Right? And in a nutshell, I can say that simply finally block will always get executed no matter what. Right? No matter what, it is used to do the resource cleanup operations. So this is a best example, database example. You cannot have the connection. You cannot. You have to ensure that the database connection is closed, or else the memory leakage will happen. Right? This is something that is very important to close the database connection. Right? So closing connections. In order to close any connections, in order to make sure that a particular instruction has to get executed mandatorily, we'll go for what? Finally block. All the important statements will be printed from the finally block, whether the exception is happening or whether the exception is not happening. So I will introduce few cases. Here, like let me say that case 1. So we will understand it in a better way with the help of these cases. Case 1. So in the case 1,
Anna,
yeah.
screen share stopped, Anna.
Okay, 1 minute. Okay, case 1 says, I have a try block. Let me increase the font size. I have a try block in the case 1. So inside this try block, let me give you a small piece of code that is not going to throw any exception. Just like integer data equal to 10 divided by 2. This is not going to throw any exception. System.out dot println. I'm trying to print this data. So this data is not going to throw any exception. This is just a scenario, one scenario. Next, I'm having a catch block. In the catch block, I'm going to have a different exception, like null pointer exception. Null pointer exception. This is going to make more sense. Please pay some attention. So here I'm going to print the exception that is occurring. Println. So I'm just trying to print exception. And the last statement is try followed by catch followed by finally. Finally block is going to have a simple statement like system.out.println. I will get executed always. Yes. So I hope this code is making some sense. So let us trace this, right? Let us imagine that the main thread gets created. The main thread will try to get access to the main method, and the first instruction is this is the first instruction. So data is a variable. Something is wrong with my system. Okay. So the data is the variable, and this is going to, this evaluation is going to give a result like 5, right? And 5 will be displayed in the output. So exception is not occurring here. 5 will be displayed. If the exception is not occurring, do you think that catch block will be executed? Catch block will be skipped in this case. There, the try block is not giving any exception, right? So the catch block will not get executed. So from the try block, the control will come directly here. The output is going to be I will get executed always. This is case 1. So let me replicate this case 1 in STS for the better understanding. So I have a try block int data equal to 10 divided by 2. This is what I have defined over there. System.out.println. In this print statement, I am just displaying the data, variable data. Here I have just mentioned null pointer exception, right? I'm just trying to print exception. Let's remove this. Instead of multi-catch block, I am going to have only one finally block. Since we are discussing about finally block, let me write a finally block. System.out.println. I will get executed always. Hope this is making sense. So let me separate this try block. Catch block. Finally block. I hope this is clear now. Try catch block. Finally. So do you think this try block is going to generate any exception? Try block is not generating any exception because 10 divided by 2 will get evaluated to 5, right? So 5 will be displayed in the console, right? The try block is not generating any exception. The control will directly, it will skip the catch block. Then the control will come to the finally block. So the output is going to be what? 5. I will get executed always. This is the case 1. I will get executed always. Right? Now the case 2. This case 2 is very, very important. If I am trying to place an exception deliberately, wantedly. Now exception is occurring here. Right? Let's understand this. Please pay some attention. This is very, very, very important. Let me take the code here. I have a try block, and this instruction, this line of this piece of code is going to generate an exception. Please type in the chat box what exception this code is going to generate. Please type in the chat box. what exception this code is going to generate. I want you to type in the chat box. Very important stuff. In 10 by 0 is going to generate an exception. What kind of exception is it? No. Not getting my point. 10 by 0 is going to generate 10. You cannot divide any number upon 0. This line is going to generate exception because you cannot divide any number upon 0. It's going to generate arithmetic exception. Arithmetic exception will be generated. Right? When the exception is generated, it will try to search for the handling code in the catch block. Exception generated, it will try to search for the handling code in the catch block. We have only one catch block, but this catch block is handling a different exception, null pointer exception, irrelevant exception. Right? Understand? This is null pointer exception. Arithmetic exception will not be handled by an exception which is null pointer exception. It will be arithmetic exception, then this exception will be handled successfully. But here it is null pointer exception. Exception will occur, exception will not be handled. Usually, when the exception is not handled, the program will get terminated abnormally. We have seen this many times. When the exception is not handled, the program will get terminated abnormally. Right? Let us assume that, let me go back here. Let us assume that I don't have finally block. Let me remove this finally block. Exception has occurred. The program will get terminated abnormally. If the program is getting terminated abnormally because there is no relevant catch block, right? Let us run this. See, I got arithmetic exception. Program has got terminated abnormally. But I want to execute this code. Even though the exception is occurring, no matter what exception is occurring or exception is not occurring, I always want to execute this piece of code. This is my requirement. Do you think that this piece of code got executed now? It is not executed here, right? If I have a requirement to execute a piece of code, no matter what, whether the exception is occurring or whether the exception is not occurring, I will place this piece of code in the finally block. If I do this, if the exception is occurring or not occurring, no issues. This finally block will always get executed. See? First execute the fine block, then terminate the program abnormally. What it says, if you use finally block, if finally block is used and if the exception occurred and it is not handled properly, the program gets terminated abnormally. But still the finally block will get executed. It is just like if you are visiting a restaurant, if you are visiting AC restaurant and if you are forgetting to close the door, right, there will be the AC leakage and the room temperature will get increased, right? So if the door is automatic, no matter what, if you forgot or if you don't forget, the door will get closed automatically. right? That same analogy you can apply this to the finally block. Even the exception occur, or if the exception is not occurring, no matter at all, the finally block will get executed. So let me take the case 3. So the case 3 says, right, in this case the catch block is not handling the relevant exception. The relevant exception is arithmetic exception. The catch block is not handling the arithmetic exception. That's why exception occurred, but still final block is getting executed, right? So let me have the arithmetic same exception. The exception that is occurring here is arithmetic exception, right? I am handled properly. Let me use this. Exception occurred here, right? And it is going to be arithmetic exception, and I have a catch block that is going to handle arithmetic exception, right? In this case, the execution will be smooth. Handled properly, I will always get executed. Exception, as soon as the exception is occurred, it will jump to the catch block. The catch block is handling the relevant exception, and the statement will get executed, and finally block will get executed as usual, right? Even if we keep the irrelevant exception like null pointer exception is arithmetic, and here we have declared null pointer exception, which is completely irrelevant. So the exception is not handled. The program has to get terminated abnormally, but still the finally block will get executed. You see, I will always get exception occurred, but still finally block will get executed. Just type S in the chat box if you have understood. Okay, and the theory says, and one more theory says, we have just defined that the finally block will get executed always, right? Let me introduce one more case. So this is a typical case. From the interview perspective, many times, not many times you will face this question. When you say that you are good at exception handling, this question is compulsory. What is that case? We have 3 branching statements. There are 3 branching statements in Java. What are they? Return statement. One is a return statement, and the second one is break statement. Third one is what? Continue statement. Right? And our understanding is what? Very simple. When you use return statement, the control will exit from the method. Right? Let me write it here. The control will exit from the method. Break statement is meant to the control will exit from the loop. Continue statement is a statement is used to the control will keep kept active. You know this already, right? Return statement, continue statement, and the break statement. Things we know, right? So let me let us recollect this. So this is my main method. Let me remove all this. I have a simple main method, a test class. Let me show you the understanding of return statement. What I am saying is, integer a equal to, let me say a equal to 10. Taking a equal to 10. I am saying if a equal to 5, return, right? Please focus here. System.out.println the last statement. the last statement, and let me write something here. The first statement. Let us understand what is the return here. Okay, I have assigned. I have taken an integer data type and I have assigned a value 10 to a. Self-explanatory, no issues. Right. My next statement is I am going to print what? The first statement. This is my first statement. If I run this code, the output is very self-explanatory, right? The control will come here, main thread will be created, the control will come here. A is going to be 10. Value of 10 will be assigned to A. And this will be printed. First statement will be printed. Now here the checking will happen. What is that? If 10 double equal to 5, the condition is going to be false. Right? This if condition, if block will be skipped, the output is going to be, this will be executed. If I run this, the first statement, the last statement. But if you're taking 5, I'm taking 5 here. 5 is assigned to A. System.out.println, the first statement, this will be executed, and now the condition checking. 5 double equal to 5. If block will be executed, inside the block I have just said return. Return means the control will exit from this method. As soon as it finds return, it will not execute the remaining statement. Control will come directly here. What is the proof? If I run this, the last statement will not get executed. It means the control is jumping. As soon as it finds return, it is just jumping, coming out of the loop. It's not even worrying about executing the remaining statement. So that is the understanding about return. But the interview question is like this. The most popular interview question is like this. A try block. Focus here, very, very important. Try block, a catch block. The catch block, I am taking the exception. Exception here. Right, and I have a finally block. System.in. I will always get executed. Try block, catch block, finally block. Right, I said if you use return, the control will get exit from the loop. Right, so let us say that I have a system.out.println here. Try block. I can also say that I am in try block. And another system.out.println statement, I am in catch block. Instead of I will always get executed, I am in finally block also. I am in try block, I am in catch block. If I run this, the output is very simple. I am in try block and I am in finally block, because catch block will not get executed. Only when the exception is occurring, catch block will get executed, right? But see, look at this. Now I am just trying to do some little manipulation. Manipulation is like system.out.println try block. I am just trying to generate an exception. Teacher data equal to 10, or simply I can say, let me write it here only. Integer data equal to 10 divided by 0. This statement is going to generate an arithmetic exception. So as soon as the exception is generated, the catch block has to get executed. So inside this catch block, I am just using, of this I am using return. So let me use this. Let me use this on below this. Let me use return. Now you tell me. In my previous example, I have said that as soon as the control encounters a return statement, it is going to execute. It is going to come out of the current method. But in this case, let us trace the control. First, this is like this. The JVM, main thread is going to see this try block. Okay, the JVM is going to execute this. I am in try block. This will be executed. The exception occurred. Right? The relevant catch block will get executed. Catch block. Right, and again is encountering return statement. right? So the control will jump here, right? This is what we have discussed. So return statement is so powerful that it will terminate what? It will terminate the current method, but it is powerless when the return statement is powerless when you have a finally method. It is powerful when it is powerful. When you don't have finally method, the return statement is very powerful that it will make sure that the control is getting out of the loop, out of the method. But when you have the finally method is much more powerful than the return statement. Right? This will get executed. After executing the statements inside the finally block, then the control will be moved out of what? Moved out of the method. So let me run this. See, even with the return statement, this I am in finally block is getting executed. Right? So if I remove this, if I don't use finally block, do you think the statement will get executed? Let me run this. The statement is skipped now. As soon as the control is encountered and returned, it is jumping here. But the power of finally block is defined here. If I use this statement inside the finally block, no matter what, right? JVM will say, hey, return statement, please wait until the instructions in the finally block gets executed. Then you can exit. Do not get exit because finally block is there. Give importance to give respect to finally block. It has to get executed. That is important of finally block. So this is the interview question. Interview question is like you have a return statement in the catch block. Which statement has high priority? You should say finally statement has a high priority, and the finally block will get executed no matter what, no matter even if you have included the return keyword. Right? I hope this is making some sense. Most popular interview question.